Now, in Japan, a number of sites representative of the country's industrial revolution in the late 19th to early 20th centuries have also been awarded World Heritage status. Now, the list includes the controversial fortress island of Gankanjima near Nagasaki. This comes after Japan and South Korea resolved a dispute over whether to acknowledge the site's wartime history of forced labor.
Japan is prepared to take measures that allow an understanding that there were a large number of Koreans and others who were brought against their will and forced to work under harsh conditions in the 1940s at some of the sites, and that during World War II, the government of Japan also implemented its policy of requisition.
So why are these sites controversial? Well, the wartime Japanese government forcibly brought tens of thousands of Koreans and Chinese, including women and children, to work in its mines and factories to boost production. The use of slave labor in these sites still remains a sticking point with Beijing. Gankanjima, now known as Hashima, was vacated in 1974. The island near Nagasaki was actually key to Japan's development in the 19th and the early 20th centuries. Well, William Underwood is an academic and researcher on Japanese history, and he joins me live from Sacramento in the US state of California. Thank you for joining us this morning. Do you think this decision by UNESCO was the correct one?
I think potentially it will prove to be the correct decision if implementation phase, matches with the early optimism about the labor being described as forced.
And ultimately, I suppose they could turn this into something of a positive PR coup as well, couldn't they?
Well, the basic problem here is both the content of the proposal as well as the context in which the proposal has unfolded. In terms of content, quite a sweeping 60-year nomination about Japanese nation building, which is a remarkable story, really deserves to be told. The problem in the region is that nation building rather quickly turned into empire building, and Japan's neighbors are apprehensive about what the moral of the story, could spin to.
Japan are well known, actually, for not acknowledging a lot of things that happened back in the World War II era. And when you look at the comments that have been made surrounding this decision by UNESCO, it comes across as very vague. Things like a large number of Koreans against their will. It doesn't really go far enough, does it? There are a lot of women, for example, that are asking for an unreserved apology.
Well, yes, as far as the wartime forced labor within Japan, there were about 600,000 Koreans, 40,000 Chinese, and 35,000 Allied POWs. And that kind of gets into the context. For the past 70 years, since the end of the war, the Japanese government and especially Japanese companies, which, remember, this is an industrial nomination, have really done a very poor and even insincere job of confronting that past. One other aspect here is that the current Japanese Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, seems rather intent on taking the country in a rightward, some would even say neo-nationalist direction. So you've got the problems with the content of the nomination set in the context of these unresolved wartime issues.
And very quickly, your message to the Japanese government regarding this issue?
Well, it looks like a great baby step. If the follow-through is authentic and sincere, and again, if the Japanese companies can somehow get into the picture, it could turn these sites into real places of reconciliation instead of division.
Okay. William Underwood, thank you very much for your time there.